Version 12 relies exclusively on INI files to store settings. It also uses INI files to save data for exporting and importing. To avoid problems with formatting and default characters when using different regional settings in Windows, version 12 forces all programs to use US-centric settings, as shown in the information on the screen.
Welcome to this tutorial on importing version 10 data into the version 12 SQLite database tables. If you have version 10 but haven't exported the data, stop here, view the tutorial on exporting version 10 data, run the version 10 data export program, and then return to this tutorial. Viewing the export tutorial first improves your understanding of the steps to follow. First, start the MPO Canopus launcher. Click on the Data Management tab and click V10Import. Remember that a single click, not double, is needed to show the categories and to select a program in a category. This is the main form of the import data program. It has several sections. Each one is covered in a section of this tutorial. If this is the first time through the conversion, you should follow the same order of tasks as in this tutorial. In the base settings at upper left on the Convert tab are the Empty Tables and Debug checkboxes. If Empty Tables is checked, all existing version 12 data in a given section will be deleted before importing data. Checking Debug will go through all of the steps in a given section to parse the data, but they are not saved to the database table. This gives you a chance to see if there's something wrong with the version 10 data before it's committed to the databases. Check the Mark Processed box to change file names by adding a capital P before the extension after the file has been converted. This occurs only if the debug option is not checked. Check the Skip Radio button to have the program ignore any file that has been marked processed. This helps avoid adding duplicate data. Check the Process Radio button to have all files processed, regardless if they have been marked as processed. Select one of the supported star catalogs from the default catalog drop-down list. When not available otherwise, this is added to the newly added field of the Photometry Sessions table and AAVSO header records, the latter being particularly important. At the upper right are two entry fields, the first being the version 10 path. This is the path to the version 10 export files. The default in running the export program was MPO V12 exports. The second field is the path to the MPO version 12 databases. By default, this was MPO V12 databases. If you need to change either one of the paths, click the button to the right of the field you want to change. This displays a Select Directory dialog box. You can choose an existing path or create a new one. Either way, the selected directory must contain the required files. Like most version 12 programs, you can set the style or appearance of the form. The drop-down list at lower left shows you which styles are available. If you select a style different from the one in use, the form will briefly disappear and then reappear with the new theme.
Before you start selecting and processing files, verify the base settings options. An incorrect combination of the debug, empty, mark processed, and the skip or process options can lead to undesired results, if not worse. Remember the number 1 rule: always make a backup beforehand. The items in the core files section were called the Mighty 5 in version 10. The phsesh and pharbs tables are the sessions and related observations and probably contain the vast majority of your version 10 data. The AAVSO and AAVSO2 tables are variable star data that specifically generated to submit observations to the AAVSO database. The double stars table is the observations of double stars, including position angle and separation in arcseconds. The user LM's catalog table is usually used to store orbital elements of newly discovered asteroids before they are included in the MPCORB table. The user stars table came with the Lone EOS star catalog and secondary standard stars determined by Arne Henden. Manually entered data from other sources can be included as well. This option can likely be ignored since the version 12 installation included preloaded version of the original tables. In this tutorial, the incoming data are expected to be valid and any existing data will be deleted. In the Core Files checklist box, select one or more of the core databases by checking the box next to its name. It's most likely that you have data from the phsesh and pharbs tables, and also likely variable star observations. If you did double stars measurements with version 10, check that box to import your data. Check the user catalogs box, but only if you added data to the original tables. Otherwise, the version 12 installation included them in the correct format. Before the conversion begins, based on the base settings selections, you may see one or more warning messages. Choose to continue, unless you want to change the settings. In that case, exit the conversion. Because the data structures of the tables between versions 10 and 12 are not compatible, converting the photometry and AAVSO tables can take a long time, possibly an hour or more if you have thousands of sessions and hundreds of thousands of observations.
To import version 10 profiles, click the Import button in the Import Profiles box. You will likely see several warning messages. These are based on the checkboxes in the base settings. While these messages may be inconvenient, importing profiles is one thing you definitely want to get right. Of particular note will be a message about deleting all astrometry data. The MPC data in a profile are the same as in an astrometry headers table record. When the profile data are read, the program checks to see if there's an existing header with the same name. If not, a new header record's name field is set to the profile name. A change in the profile's MPC data from a previous import could break the ties among the astrometry tables, and so it's strongly recommended that you do not import any astrometry data before importing all profiles, or at the least, check the empty box, which will in this case delete the data from the 3 astrometry tables. If you have a large number of profiles, some with only minor differences among them, consider creating a profile that consolidates them. You would do this by selecting the one profile that comes closest to your universal profile, and ignore the others. You can edit the universal profile using the Canopus configuration form later on. In version 12, automatic backups of the core files are critical, since the SQL-like database engine uses one file to hold all the tables in a database. Click Continue to display a Select Directory dialog. You can choose an existing directory or create a new one. For increased data security, the directory should not be on the same physical hard drive as the MPO installation. Note that this only creates a backup directory. Automatic backups are not made unless you have activated automatic backups in the profile settings that you're using. Once you've created the backup directory, click the OK button. The import time depends on the number of profiles being converted. As a result, you may or may not see the progress bar move.
A version 10 Canopus export set consists of 2 files with a common base name. Export sets were usually created to archive or exchange data with other MPO Canopus users. In collaborations, the export sets may or may not have different base names. The import process allows combining those variously named files into a single database file with the chosen name. However, the individual sessions in that single database may still have different session names. It's important to understand that in version 12, a database is a single file. A version 10 database name was the nicknames for the directory where multiple files, each being an individual table, were found. In the previous collaboration example, the 8 individual files can be put into a single file with a unique name. The following steps will describe how to assure that all sessions in that file have the same name. To get started, click the Add button, not the Import button in the Canopus Export section. This displays the Select Common Object Files form that is used to create groups, where each group has one or more files that refer to the same object. Click the Add button to display a file select dialog, such as seen on the right, where you can select one or more files with data for the same object. Navigate to a directory where the import files are stored and then select the files for the common object that you want to import. Remember that all the files must be for the same object. You'll see only the _sesh files. An error is reported if there is not a corresponding _arbs file with the same case-insensitive base name. Click the Open button. Enter a name for the group of files. This will be the base name of the file on the computer having the SDB extension. There are two requirements for the name. First, it must be a valid Windows file name, and second, it must be possible to parse the name into a unique number or name that can be found in the MPC.org file. Here are some examples of what are allowed and not allowed. All session names will be changed to the group name. This avoids the problem of having different session names used during a collaboration. Click the OK button to save the group. This returns you to the main form. In the Canopus Exports box, you'll see a tree list where the files you selected are under that group name. You can expand each branch to see the files, as shown here. You can create multiple groups, each one being a main branch on the tree. Do not click the Import button at this time. Now comes the very critical step of selecting what happens to the imported data. Selecting Primary adds the data to the core photometry.sdb database file. This might be for when the exported data came from a different computer, and you want to merge them into photometry.sdb. There is no validation to check for duplicate data, so keep track of what is already in the photometry.sdb file. Be careful. If you're importing into photometry.sdb and have checked the Empty Tables box, you will lose all existing data. In most cases, you should select New DB. This creates a separate database file for each group, each having the same 4 tables, and having the SDB extension. Until you're fully experienced with version 12, it's recommended that you select the New DB radio button and create a file for each object.
Other programs such as Tycho Tracker or Astrometrica are commonly used for astrometric observations. Even so, many thousands of astrometric positions for asteroids have been made and submitted to the Minor Planet Center using MPO Canopus. There are 3 tables in the astrometry database. The headers table stores common metadata for a specific setup, that is, where all observations use the same equipment at the same location, were of the same type of object, and involve the same personnel. Those who use multiple setups or observe different types of objects will find this feature useful since, when submitting a report to the Minor Planet Center, they simply choose a different header, and so don't have to edit a default header manually. The observations table holds the actual observations and analysis. Every observation is tied to a header record by a unique ID number. The fields in the table have been chosen to be compatible with both the old 80 character per line and modern ADES submission formats used by the Minor Planet Center. MPO Canopus uses the pipe separated values format for the ADES submissions. The third table keeps track of submissions to the MPC, including the header ID, the full file name, and the date time the file was sent to the MPC. Before selecting astrometry files, you must select an astrometry header, which is exactly the same as the MPC data in the configuration form. Here, you can select a different header without changing the current profile, which could or would affect other programs. All of the information in the header form must apply to the data being imported. Any of the fields can be edited except the header name. To make the changes permanent, click the Update button. Otherwise, the changes will be applied this one time only and then be lost. To get started, click the Load button on the Astrometry tab. This displays a multi-select open file dialog. You should find the astrometry data in the version 10 V12 Exports astrometry directory. The default is to find files ending with ast.ini. However, you can find more files by using the All Files filter. Of course, any and all files must have the correct formatting and information. The files can be from more than one directory. The only critical point is that they are common to the header settings that you've selected. Click the Import button on the Astrometry tab. Depending on the number of files, the meter may or may not update before you get the completed message. If there are any errors, a message will appear indicating the number of errors. Close that message to see a read-only memo dialog that shows details about the errors.
The final step is to update the pH sesh table in the photometry.sdb database by changing the original names for cameras and telescopes to a mapped group name created in version 10. If you want to keep the original names or didn't create groups, you can skip this section. The import process is the same for cameras and telescopes, and so quick that no progress bar is required. Since both imports work the same, only camera imports will be described. After you click the Import button in the Cameras section, a lengthy warning message appears. Please read it carefully. Nothing should go wrong during the mapping update, but you should have a backup of the photometry.sdb file just in case. This way you can restore the original data from before the camera import was done. Click the Import button in the Cameras section to display a File Open dialog. Maneuver to the version 10 MPO V12 Exports Equipment directory. You should see only one file with a CSV extension. However, if you ran the version 10 export program more than once, there may be more than one file. If this is the case, select the most recent version. The import should take little time. When done, you should see a message saying that all went well. If needed, repeat these steps for the telescope's import.
Of course, you want to see imported data after doing the import, but without having to exit the program to start one of the other data management programs. You can do this by going to the Review tab. The MPC orb file is usually empty when installing the program. That's because it's more than 200 megabytes after conversion. You do not have to do it now, but before you use any of the programs that rely on that file, you should follow the steps that are indicated here. The form uses read-only tables, and so it's not a data management tool. You cannot edit any of the data. In case if you need to edit any imported data, you would use one of the data management utilities that operates on a specific table or database. The drop-down list at the upper left includes all of the standard databases in version 12. It will not include any export dataset databases. In this case, we choose the AAVSO database. When you switch databases, the first table in alphabetical order is displayed automatically. Here you see the AAVSO bin lookup table that is used to assure consistent entries for CCD image binning. To review the data in another table, use the Tables drop-down list to select one of the tables in the current database. Here we choose AAVSO header table, where you can see the catalog data for each variable star and its check star.
This concludes this tutorial for importing version 10 data into version 12. More tutorials are on the MPO YouTube channel by using the URL on the screen. Please subscribe so that you be notified when new tutorials are available. If you have any questions or comments, please send them to the MPO Software Forum on Groups.io. Please note, you cannot attach files to messages. If necessary, you will be asked to send them offline.